It was a night like any other when Isabella's life turned upside down. A cold, lonely evening with the sound of the wind howling outside her apartment window. She had been working late, as usual, determined to meet her goals and keep her mind focused. She had a good job as an architect, a steady career she had fought for after years of sweat and tears. She had built her future brick by brick, each stone carved with sacrifice and discipline. But none of it had ever mattered as much as Jason did. Jason, the man who had promised her the world, the man who held her heart in his hands, his touch gentle, his words sweet. He had been her rock, her safe place, her confidant. Their love had been something she believed in with everything she had, a partnership she thought would stand the test of time. They shared everything, dreams, secrets, fears. Nothing was hidden between them. Or so she thought. But the night she came home early, there was no welcoming smile from Jason. No hug or laughter, as had become the norm after a long day. Instead, there was silence, the kind of silence that screams so loudly you can almost hear it in your bones. The door to their bedroom was ajar, and something inside her told her to pause. Her heart was already racing for reasons she couldn't place, a chill crawling up her spine as she slowly pushed the door open. The sight she saw didn't even seem real at first. It felt like a nightmare, the kind where everything is blurry and distorted. But the blurriness faded and reality set in with full force. Jason, the man she had loved, the man she had trusted with her heart, was lying on the bed, tangled with someone else. And that someone else wasn't just anyone. It was Claire, her best friend. The woman she had shared every detail of her life with for years. The woman who had listened to her heartbreaks, her struggles, and her dreams. The woman who had been there through every high and low, every moment when Isabella thought she was alone. And yet, here they were, locked in an intimate embrace, completely oblivious to her presence. Her breath caught in her throat, and for a moment, everything froze. Time stretched, the seconds crawling by like hours. Then the noise came, their voices soft at first, but growing louder as they registered her presence. Jason's eyes widened. He jumped off the bed, stumbling over his words. Isabella, I can explain. Explain? What could he possibly explain? What words could possibly make this moment right? But it wasn't Jason who broke her. No, it was Claire. Claire, who stood up and looked at Isabella with cold, calculating eyes. You should have known, Isabella. You always knew. You just refused to see it. The words hit harder than any physical blow could have. Claire, her best friend, her confidant, was just as guilty. She wasn't remorseful. She wasn't even sorry. She was proud. Proud of what they had done. Proud of the betrayal. Tears welled up in Isabella's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She didn't need to cry. She had spent so many nights crying for love, for trust, for her future. But now those tears would never come again. Not for them. Not for the people who had broken her. Instead, she just turned around and walked out. She didn't say a word. There was no need. The silence between them was the only truth that mattered. Days turned into weeks, and Isabella's heart felt like it was encased in ice. The pain of betrayal was suffocating, and no matter how many times she tried to bury it, it kept resurfacing, gnawing at her insides. She couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't think straight. She wanted to disappear, to pretend it never happened. But that wasn't who she was. Isabella was strong, and she would rise from this. She would not be their victim. But how could she get back at them? How could she make them feel the same agony she was feeling? The same soul-shattering pain? Anger boiled inside her, a red-hot fury that she didn't know what to do with. She was smarter than both of them, and she knew exactly how to make them pay. It wouldn't be messy. It wouldn't be impulsive. No, her revenge would be calculated, methodical, and most of all, sweet. Isabella spent weeks observing, gathering information. She didn't want to make a move too quickly. She knew better than that. Revenge wasn't about raw emotion. It was about precision. The first part of the plan was about creating doubt. Jason, in his guilt and panic, would inevitably try to reach out to her. He sent messages, called, left voicemails. Each time she ignored him, his frustration grew. And that's exactly what Isabella wanted. Jason was the kind of man who couldn't stand being ignored, so she made sure to make him feel invisible. But she didn't just leave him in the dark. No, she left subtle clues. When Jason asked around, people, mutual friends, would tell him she was doing fine but had been strangely distant. The seeds of doubt began to grow. Jason, always too proud and stubborn to apologize, began to wonder, was Isabella really moving on? Had she truly forgiven him? Did she know more than she had let on? As for Claire, she would be a different challenge. Isabella knew Claire's weaknesses, the things that made her tick, her pride, her insecurities, her desperation to be seen as better than Isabella. So Isabella started a slow burn. She met up with Claire, pretending to rekindle their friendship. She asked Claire to meet her at a local bar one evening, and Claire, eager to smooth things over, agreed. At the bar, Isabella played the part perfectly. She laughed, reminisced, shared old memories, and let Claire talk. All the while, she made sure to subtly plant seeds of doubt in Claire's mind about Jason. "I never thought he'd do something like that," she would say casually, leaning in closer. "But maybe that's just how men are, huh?" Claire, still shaken from Jason's secretive behavior, didn't realize what was happening. Isabella's words were calculated, filled with just the right amount of insinuation. By the end of the night, Claire was questioning everything. But that was just the beginning. When Claire went to the bathroom, Isabella slipped something into her drink. Nothing dangerous, just enough to cause a little disorientation. When Claire came back, Isabella smiled, keeping the conversation light. And when Claire finally stumbled out of the bar, Isabella sent Jason a text. "Just wanted to let you know, Claire and I had a great time tonight. We caught up and reminisced about the old days. She's been acting a little strange, though, don't you think?" Jason, already on edge, saw the message and immediately began to doubt Claire. Was she hiding something from him? Was she really the one he thought he knew? The seeds of suspicion, carefully planted, began to sprout. But Isabella's revenge wasn't complete yet. She moved on to the final piece of her plan, the one that would shatter everything. Jason's company had always been a big part of his identity. He took pride in his position, in his title. But Isabella knew the cracks in the system. She knew about his involvement in some shady business dealings, the fraudulent transactions he had made to cover up his own mistakes. It wasn't public knowledge yet, but it would be. Using a well-placed contact, Isabella had evidence of Jason's involvement in the fraud. Emails, bank records, everything. She carefully orchestrated an anonymous tip to the company's board, ensuring that they would begin an internal investigation. The fallout was inevitable. Jason's once stellar reputation was destroyed. The fraud was uncovered, and he was fired in disgrace. His career was over, his reputation in tatters. The worst part? He had no idea who had set him up. He was too paranoid, too guilty to trust anyone. Claire wasn't spared either. As the investigation grew, Claire was implicated in the fraud as well. Isabella had made sure to subtly suggest Claire's involvement. She planted enough evidence to make sure Claire would take the fall for her own actions. The trust between the two of them fractured completely, leaving Claire not only isolated from Jason, but also facing criminal charges. By the time Isabella was done, both of them had lost everything. Jason, humiliated and broken, had no job, no friends, and no self-respect left. Claire was left in a downward spiral, no longer the confident woman she once was. Isabella, on the other hand, felt nothing but satisfaction. She had waited, planned, and executed her revenge with cold precision. She had made them pay for the betrayal in a way that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. And as she walked away from their crumbled lives, Isabella knew that no amount of pain could ever take away her victory. The price of betrayal had been steep, but in the end, she had emerged victorious.